Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? It is October 22nd. I always forget which date it is. 8 o'clock p.m. and Tuesday here in sunny, not so sunny Bellingham, Washington. I forgot what time it is. It's sunny somewhere, whatever. Anyway, welcome back to another episode of GQAzndood Gaming Academy, where we pretty much hang out with some faculty members that I know and that are very well versed and educated in all things video games and pop culture. So if it's your first time here, pull up a chair, grab a seat. You're in for a treat. So tonight we got a pretty big show here. We got a lot to cover, especially something that we're adding. So with that said, let's just move on toward the show, and we got a full staff today. Unfortunately, as a guest member wasn't able to make it today. She wasn't feeling well, so we're not going to force her to come on. But hopefully, she'll be on soon because she was one of the ones that inspired one of the new topics we'll be talking tonight, called the Rhetorical. So with that said, let's go forward. So, like I said, first, if it's your first time here, welcome back to another exciting episode of the GQAzndood Gaming Academy, where we break down in the latest world of gaming. This week, we got some big topics to dive into. First up, we'll be talking about the highly anticipated Black Myth Wukong, which is getting a physical copy. And that game is making waves with its stunning visuals and deep dive into the Chinese mythology. Very uncommon, but it's hopefully we see more of that, more prominent, because there's some influence out there, but we need to see more, I guess, like variety of storytelling, which would be pretty cool. Then we'll check out Nintendo's latest innovation with the Nintendo Switch Online Playtest program, what it is and how you can get involved, and of course, like I said, we got a thought-provoking edition of the Rhetorical coming your way, where we'll be asking the questions: if you could design or redesign your favorite video game, what would you do? So we'll be exploring our dream game ideas and redesigns. So buckle up and get ready for a great show. But with great shows like this, you can't do it by yourself. This is why I brought the best faculty that I can find right behind Rite Aid, where the best people you can find is always behind Rite Aid. First, let me introduce my man on the street, the one and only. Who are you? Blazing Ace Nelson. What's up?
What's good, neighborhood?
What's up,
GQ,
man?
good to see you as always. Man, I'm just gonna say it right here and now. The last couple of days, or at the very least, like Thursday and Friday last week, I was not doing so well.
Oh geez, man,
Yeah.
don't you hate? And this is why we game, because we want to kind of escape, right? So
But nah, last week I thankfully it wasn't COVID, but still got hit with that. That flu done came in and said, "Hey,
that
you need
flu
to stay
dough.
in, you need to stay in bed for a couple days." And I'm like, "But why? I need to work. Stay in bed." Okay.
There's been a few memories, moments in life where I was sick in bed, and a certain specific games kind of carried me through it. One of them was Chrono Trigger for sure. So
There you
speaking of
go.
time, it's about time our boy Nick came back, because he's been missing, and we missed him dearly, because he's our inside man, and we can't really have this show without him. He's the one and truly tragically late, Mr. Nick. Oh, you there? Is he popping up?
Nope.
I think he froze. We can't hear you if you're talking. Oh, there you are. Are you kind of there now?
I'm here,
You're like deep. Okay.
but I keep dropping.
There he is.
It's saying connection lost.
Oh, okay.
Man, this thing doesn't even want me here. It's like, you need another week. We don't need you back yet. It's probably because
My
of that
man's
comment
running-
about being found behind the Rite Aid.
That's where our internet connection is right now.
Yeah,
our
apparently
servers
that's
are
where I got
behind
my
Rite Aid.
router.
So, yeah,
Good to
it's
be back.
sometimes it's one of those nights where everybody in the block is running on the same line. So that sometimes it happens, So we need better infrastructure for cable, internet at least,
Mhm.
Yeah. So where you been, Nick? What you been up to? Oh,
While you're doing that, I'm gonna take I'm, I was gonna say I was gonna take a faculty break to reset my router.
okay. All right. Sounds good, man.
That works.
All right. Good luck. BRB. All right. So, man, so you said you were not feeling well on Thursday and Friday?
Yeah, I had to seriously had to take a couple days to just I literally had to take a couple days to lay down on the couch, wrapped up in a blanket, eating ramen, watching The Price is Right.
Bro, that's
It
a
was
good time.
them kind of sick. It was them kind of sick days.
That's a good time. Man, that just sounds like a good time to me. So, I mean, aside from the sick part, right? Sounds like a good time to me. So, yeah, with that said, guys, like if you guys have been following us, like, subscribe, follow the show. It helps us kind of like see you guys interact with our content to see like if you guys are loving it. Um, it helps kind of dictate which direction the show is gonna go. It's a very young show, and I'm trying to make it a little bit different than all the other podcasts. I'm pretty sure every podcaster says that, but community driven, of course, is usually my best kind of like practice when it comes to stuff like this. And we should talk about the things they like, and of course share our
Yeah.
experiences with that. So so tonight, I was gonna have Pepper kind of jump on, but unfortunately she's not feeling well also, so she won't be here tonight. But hopefully, like I said, she can come back here soon. But we got a lot to cover. I've got some two topics to cover, and the rhetorical might take a little bit longer because it's experimental, and we nothing more fun and interesting than talking about how you would redesign or redesign your favorite game or current franchise or whatever. So, um,
Mhm.
yeah. So as we wait for Nick to return, to while he's getting uh kicking the crap out of his router, let's go back. Let's go to our next favorite segment of the show, which I think is a big popular one to this week in gaming history. So,
We're
so
gonna take you back to the past.
hey, you want to don't get DMCA'd, man? Come on, I don't want James Rolfe knocking on my door. All right.
Yo, if he actually showed up,
I'd be like, first of all, I'd be like, you watched the show? That's crazy.
right?
That'd be funny, right? Yeah. So if it's your first time here, awesome. If you are a regular, welcome back. This part of the show, it's one of our favorite parts. This is the week in gaming history, where each week we take a journey through time and to revisit some of the most iconic, groundbreaking, or just plain fun video game releases that dropped during this week in years past. Whether it's a classic that shaped the industry or a hidden gem that deserves more love, we're diving into the games that made history. So grab your nostalgia goggles and let's see what this week brought us over the years. And look who's back. Hello, sir. Welcome back.
Well, apparently my internet is also from history. I just booted up my 56K. Watch out.
Hey, man, you got to start somewhere. I remember
Yeah, I had to
that.
hook it up with that fax machine I had in back.
I'm not ashamed that I used Net Zero when I was a kid to pay for that internet.
And
So.
I'm not joking about the fax machine thing either. I remember one of my first multiplayer s games is I had played Descent with a buddy of mine, and we connected through our fax machines
Descent.
in order to get around the parents on the phone lines in order to play a game together. Took
Hey,
like 3 hours to get us to connect. We played one game, but yeah, no, that
yo, it
was a
works.
real thing.
I think mine was definitely my first like experience with that was Hexen. Do you guys remember Hexen?
Yeah, yeah. Of course, I remember Hex, and we need a remake. Where are you on that, Phil
Oh my
Spencer? You've been
gosh.
wearing that shirt.
Okay, that's a great topic to get into later, actually. But let's go to our first game in this gaming history. Today, Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins came out in 1992, which makes this game how old? Like
That would make it 32.
32 years old. Man, this game is older than most people probably watching the show. That's all I'm saying. Right.
Probably. But
Yeah.
I will say this, man. Like this, okay, Super Mario Land 2, at the very least for, little big head Ace running around on the playground at freaking Rio Vista Elementary down in San B. Look, this was the game that actually, this was like one of the first games where I was actually able to meet other people and bond over this game. Because
Really?
yeah, because like one of my really good friends from grade school showed up with his Game Boy and Super Mario Land 2, and he brought it over. He's like, "Hey, come check this out. Come check out this new Mario game I got. I'm like, what did you get? He showed me the cartridge. And I'm like, Super Mario Land. I had Super Mario Land. Wait, why is there a 2? And why does Mario have rabbit ears?
So you weren't aware that a second one had come out?
Not quite yet.
That is like, for a kid in like the 90s, that's like a shocker. You're like, they made that? That's crazy.
Right?
You know? Like, we are so spoiled with like content and like information, like the accessibility of information these days, that back then, like, to
Yeah.
hear something like that was crazy.
Yeah, it really was, because in my household, just to build off, what Ace was saying, we didn't have this game. I had the NES, I had a Game Boy, I had like Donkey Kong Land and stuff. I didn't have this game. I remember I was dog sitting for a family, like one of those odd jobs you get as a kid. The parents teach you about money and responsibility and stuff. I go over there, and in their basement they had this game. I remember going over there, like watching the dogs in summer, just to like let them out, feed them, and then just go downstairs for a couple hours and play this on their Game Boy. Like, I didn't have it, I didn't know it exist, but they had it.
I knew the existence of this game, but my house was one of those like only one console homes, right? Your parents would be like, we only have money for only one console in this house. Can't have everything. So, and Game Boy counted as a console, so I wasn't allowed to have this. Otherwise, I would have had to sell my Nintendo. But I do remember Super Mario Land, and I'm like, the big thing that really caught me as little GQ was that, like, what did Mario have in this game that wasn't available in like Mario 2, right, or Mario 1 for the NES? And so I think it was like he had a specialty hat. It wasn't the rabbit ears. Was that in the first one also?
No, not in the first one.
Yeah, it was like there was something different in Mario Land that made it exclusively like that's Mario was different than the Mario Bros. From what I remember.
The fireballs bounced.
Don't they always bounce?
Well,
like on the wall?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't remember that, man. I'm getting old here. So yeah, that was like one of the things that, like, I like when you're a kid, you just want everything, of course, right? So I was like, well, what is it about that Mario game that's different about the Mario game I have? That's kind of what I remember from when I was a kid thinking about that. So I know there's some more 21st October 21st releases, Ace, that you if you wanted to cover before we move on to the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one
Little
thing.
case G.
One thing, like two really big releases this day in gaming. Firstly, this day back in '94 in Japan was the first release on the Super Nintendo for Demon's Crest.
Oh, Demon's Crest.
Man, like, I had played a little bit of Gargoyle's Quest on the Game Boy, so I was kind of familiar with Firebrand as a separate character outside of Ghouls and Ghosts and Ghosts and Goblins.
Mm-hmm.
But Demon's Crest took it to a whole different level. Like, not just with the character, but also with being able to select them, select the location that you wanted to fly to on the world map. And again, them sweet Mode 7 graphics on the Super NES. I mean, it was a trip. And then each of the different crystals, each of the different crests that you could get, setting off those transformations and setting off those different abilities for Firebrand, and eventually getting that password for the ultimate crest. Boy, like, I am surprised and kind of glad they didn't pull too many of those abilities in for Firebrand in Ultimate Marvel 3.
Also, another game I think Capcom can remake on a AA level, kind of like what they did with the Super Ghouls and Ghosts game. They kind of remade that. I think Demon's Crest would be a good contender for that. Yeah. What about you, Nick? What you got for 21st? No, you remember anything?
No.
Okay. Just a few other notable things that came out today. As Ace, I'll let him kind of talk about it. But another game that came out today that I had to be educated on was the Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 1. Castlevania Lament of Innocence, which is technically number 1 in the Belmont saga. If you guys are looking to play it in chronological order. and another Castlevania game, Order of Ecclesia, which is apparently this month is just completely like Castlevania month. With they keep releasing it on October, which makes sense. It's Halloween themed. I don't blame you.
Oh,
So
and then
yeah,
on top of that, ooh, speaking of Castlevania, we'll have to talk about a certain announcement that I saw a couple days back, or
Mhm.
like yesterday. But we can talk about that a little bit later once we actually get more into like the gaming news stuff. We're still covering history, stuff
Okay.
that is history, not quite making history. Uh, but yeah, there's both of those Castlevania games, Order of Ecclesia, which introduced Shanoa to the series,
Yep.
and of course, Lament of Innocence, which is probably one of my favorite Castlevania games, and of course also introduced us to the first of the Belmonts, Leon, and
Mhm.
the guy that actually crafted and gifted him the alchemical whip, which eventually became the vampire killer, Ronaldo.
Mhm.
Man,
And
Ronaldo,
technically, that
bad
introduced
dude.
the origin of Dracula.
Hmm.
The
Oh yeah,
origin.
that's right. That
That's
is right.
right. Yeah, that's where the rivalry started. Technically, right? Because there was no Dracula yet in the it was just
Kind of
like yeah, go
kind of like with Transformers One. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it.
ahead. Oh yeah, I thought about watching that, and I just just over my head been so busy. So, um, you got anybody in the chat today? Chomp, Jagos, welcome as always. Hopefully we'll see Andre here tonight also.
Hmm.
But yeah, here's the thing: you bring up Demon's Crest, and I just remember like that would technically be um from what I remember what it was. It could technically be like one of the first search action games there was because like you had to travel from place to place. There was stages, right? But you were able to kind of like jump from stage to stage to collect and discover things, having found or received new abilities, right? So that's kind of like if you think about it, that's kind of like Metroid in a way.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
definitely another action exploration style game.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because I heard instead of calling it Metroidvania, people have been calling it Search Action, which is really interesting. So that's a wild one. All right, so let's see here. On the 22nd, while we wait for Nick to come back, the legendary Grand Theft Auto 3 also came out today, back in 2001, which makes this game what 23 years old. Reverse of 32.
Hmm.
23 years old, guys. The game that changed, I think, game design for like for some could argue for the worst because it raised the bar really high, right? Um, this is the game that did it right here. I remember getting this on the PS2,
Yep.
and I remember just like, oh my god, this is nothing like one or two. This is crazy, and I can explore the whole world. Like this was like one of the first memorable moments that I experienced open world games, kind of like that. From what I remember, there could have been another one before this, but as far as in the 3D realm of like, open world, kind of
Hmm.
like explore the environment, this was the game that I do recall was my first experience with that. And soon after, I was like, we both worked at a game store, right? And when you go to a game store, people will ask things, or you will ask for things like, "Yeah, are there any games like GTA 3?" Right? There's been a lot of that with this game. And
Oh
speaking of
yeah.
three, Nick's back. Huzzah! There he is. Awesome.
Jesus Christ.
Just in time.
My
Ah,
lord.
quick, a little quick GTA 3 story from my end. Probably like one of the last times I had actually played it while I was, staying with my cousins.
Mhm.
I remember spending a good half hour, like, I was just messing around the map, not trying to progress the story any. Got up to like 4 or 5 stars. Was just ripping and running, doing a whole bunch of dumb stuff. Found a garbage truck. Proceeded to continue my rampage for the next half hour on 5 stars in the garbage truck.
And were you like screaming "trash is driving trash"?
Yep. We're close enough to it. I mean, that was around the same point where what you call it, that one TV series with Charles S. Dutton, Rock. That was around the time that was being shown on TV. So I was literally driving around hollering, "I'm Charles S. Dutton."
So see, I love like the memories that you have for like specific games, anything like that. Nick, do you have anything on GTA 3? Did you get a chance to
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah, actually, I do. And it's a little more real world. So this was right around the time that this game came out, and we had to. This was actually for Spanish class for me in high school.
I like where this is going.
And yeah, what we had to do is we had to come up with a skit in Spanish, and this was like second year Spanish, so kind of like basic stuff. So me and a couple buddies got together in our group, and we decided to do a recording in Grand Theft Auto, but using the kind of like dialogue that you had to have in Spanish class. So like basically hailing a taxi, telling the person driving where to go. So I remember very clearly one of us was driving and we were talking in Spanish from our script because we had to have this script hit certain beats in order to get like a good grade on it. And this was before like you could record your screen really well. So we had like a camera pointed right at the screen with the mics just like barely picking us up. This was like super early kind of stuff. But I remember getting up to a stoplight and a person comes up, bashes the window, takes my buddy out of the car, throws him on the ground, and he gets run over. And we just continue in Spanish trying not to laugh. It was real funny, very random, but yeah, that's like one of my defining moments about this game. It had just come out. It was this open world thing. We're just like, let's do a skit in here and we can record it. It sounds like fun. It just went off the rails so quickly, and we were just like trying not to laugh the entire time.
So my man Nick was already doing machinima videos before machinima was a thing.
Yeah,
So,
they're real early.
in high school, no less.
Yeah, I should have
Right,
sold off that idea. What was I thinking?
Bro, I would have been like, I know that guy. I know that guy. That would have been such a cool project. I think that's so creative, and it's a great way to immerse like pop culture in our hobbies into like education. You know, I think that's so fun.
Keep in mind this by this point we had moved to Whidbey Island, so it was a very small community,
Yeah.
not a lot going on. So you basically had like video games and stuff like that to like keep your interest. Spanish class though, like when you got us together, I remember for our capstone one, we had like a whole action film thing that we had recorded, not to have to do with video games, but like we went all out when it came to those skits.
It's so cool, man. I hope like you find it inside you to do more. I think those are some of the coolest content that I've seen online. I like I love Red versus Blue, and I know you are a fan of them also. Rooster Teeth, rip, but bless their heart. Yeah, I think that's like I learned something about you, and I think that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Honestly, the best way to think of it is think of it as like what people do with GTA RP nowadays. Just like that kind of
Okay,
recording, they're walking through,
gotcha.
just kind of talking in the mic in their character. We would just happen to be doing it in Spanish and very early on.
That's so funny. A few other notable releases in 1022. The only one other one I got is Golden Axe 3. Was that for Sega?
Yep.
Sega / Mega Drive. How cool is the name Mega Drive? Right, especially like back in the day when we had like the drive, disk drive, CD drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Mega Drive sounds pretty dope. I guess that was both Japan and the UK, right? Only the US had the Genesis.
Yeah. In the US it was called the Genesis. Japan and the UK it was the Mega Drive.
They had to make it all biblical. The Genesis.
Well, it's not just that, but it really highlights the big difference about Sega Japan and Sega US and their marketing and branding. Like if you're not familiar with the Console Wars book, I highly recommend reading it. It's super interesting to learn about the history of it. Since we're on the topic of history, fellow professors, it's one of those things that like reading through that and just understanding how like disconnected the two like teams were just in Sega as they were trying to like fight the juggernaut that was Nintendo. Super interesting stuff to hear, but you get an idea as to why they called it the Genesis, and like a really cool thing for us, especially that worked in the retail game space. Like the Sega 32X attachment, the Sega CD, and then the Sega Saturn, just hearing like how one team was like, "Oh, that's a terrible idea. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it like that. That's bad." The other team's like, "Well, no, we're going to do it like that." And you're like, "Oh, great. Cool. I
I,
guess we'll sell it."
I do
Right.
remember watching a mini documentary on Netflix about like the marketing of Sega, and that was super interesting because you're right. There was like a big disconnect between like U.S. marketing and like European and Japan marketing.
Honestly,
So
that's kind of one of the things that got me into deciding to learn Japanese, was because I wanted to be a part of the industry, and it made sense that half the industry is based in Japan when I was younger.
yeah,
So for me, it was like I really wanted to learn that to try to work in the industry to be a part of that. But you learn very quickly about different cultures and even in the business sense too. So yeah, if you get a chance, check out the Console Wars book. I forget the author. I'll look it up later and toss it in there. It's worth a read,
yeah.
just to hear a little bit more about the forces behind both those companies during the console wars.
The console wars. I think the console wars are butt over right now. So
Well, I mean, the console wars are second only to the great corporate wars, where only Taco Bell remains.
that's true. It's true. The real winner of everybody.
Demolition Man was supposed to be satire. It was supposed to be satire.
Nah, man,
No,
it was
it's like The Simpsons, man. We're
Not
getting
a
a glimpse
freaking
into the future.
documentary.
it's documentary. Documentary.
It's like
Squall,
Idiocracy and Demolition coming true.
Squall Shade on YouTube says Golden Axe 3 was that the one with that was on the big screen in the arcades?
Yes, I believe it was.
Did GA3 make it into the arcades, or was that the duel? I know there was a
well,
fighting game,
The Duel was in arcades, but GA3, I think that was the Revenge of Death Adder.
and that was in the arcade also.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like my Sega knowledge sucks because one console house and I was a Nintendo boy. So okay.
Well,
All
and
right.
if you're a fan of like high fantasy at all, definitely look at the cover art for Golden Axe 3. It
Oh,
reminds me of like Conan. So
yeah.
good.
Frank Azzetta, pretty much. If you guys know who Frank Azzetta is, he did a lot of the heavy metal covers, like the magazine Heavy Metal. So very very good artist. So, well, back to 1023 this week. The legendary Mario Brothers 3 came out on Wednesday in 1988. So my first experience with this game was from the movie The Wizard. You guys remember that movie?
Yeah, of course I do.
Nick's like, God damn it.
California.
He always brings that up, doesn't he? I think when I was a kid, I was always excited to see video games and movies and magazines, whatever. Movies specifically. And when they had The Wizard, I was like, it's a game about playing video games. And I love this movie. Where we see the power glove and playing the kid plays Rad
So
Racer
bad.
with it. But like this game wasn't even announced yet, and it appeared in the movie during the championships, and I was like, Mario 3, that's a thing. And then like after the movie release, they announced it in like Nintendo Power that it was coming out. But it was just so wild to see like an unreleased game that was coming out in a movie. So I mean, it's like 88, right? So
I mean, that was when I gotta say it. That was when marketing was like incredibly creative.
Because they had to be.
yeah, pretty much.
We talked about it. I don't know how many times, but one of my favorite things about like video game history, especially, is looking back on how companies had to interact with customers or gamers back in the day, right? Just thinking about, we couldn't access that kind of information, so you had to call a hotline at Nintendo.
Oh
It was a
man,
wall of binders that these people would have to like sift through really quickly to give you these like tips and stuff. Maybe take a little extra time to get the little extra money. But this is how they had to advertise this kind of stuff. I mean, if you ever, for a sense of nostalgia, every once in a while, I'll throw on like 80s and 90s commercials in the
On YouTube?
background kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
do that for some of the old video game advertisements, and
Oh,
it's crazy.
It's wild.
Yeah,
know,
it's
bro.
real wild.
There was some stuff back then. For
Yeah,
sure.
that era, especially like going from like even some of the Atari stuff was pretty wild back in the day.
All right, hold on.
So yeah,
Content idea. Look at old
yeah,
ads.
look at old ads.
Yeah, I like
Some
that.
of them you'll probably get demonetized though, so be careful.
Okay, we're on late enough.
Yeah, after dark.
yeah, video games after dark. Ace got any history on SMB3?
Ooh, yeah, like Mario 3, like that right there. Okay, remember how, I mentioned that, my my late uncle was the first one in our family to actually pick up a NES
Yeah.
when the console first released. Now, by the time Mario 3 came out, my branch of the family, my siblings and I, we had our own, we had our own Nintendo for our household. And outside of Tetris and Pinbot, Mario 3 was the big family game where everybody got involved. Everyone from dad all the way down to me.
Also,
And like,
what the hell is Pinbot?
oh,
You don't know Pinbot?
yo, you
Dude.
Drop it on the link in the chat.
my
I,
man,
I
I
probably have played it, but I played Nintendo Pinball, but Pinbot.
no Pinbot. I'm about to change your life.
Lowercase G is about to get a little shocked here.
Pinbot. While he's looking that up and educating us on Pinbot, another few notable things that came out today. Let's see here is RPG Maker MV. I think that was recent. Do you know what year that was, Ace?
RPG Maker MV. Let me go back to that. And the reason I actually included RPG Maker MV is because that right there was like MV was one of the big, one of the really big expansions that, you know, it was one of the really big expansions, one of the really big, sequels as far as the RPG Maker games go that really built up on not just the construction of the game itself, not just, allowing people to, not just allowing people to utilize, Java and simple script in order to actually construct their own art, their own, 16-bit style RPGs. But this one also came with the capability, through a lot of hard work in the community. It came with the capability for folks to start importing their own, not just their own sprites, but their own full sprite sets and the different combat systems that could be put together simply through script writing in RPG Maker MV was it was massive. I mean, there are at least 2, maybe 3 really popular titles that are out right now that were built in RPG Maker MV.
That's a good selling point for RPG Maker. If you sell another game made by that game, this disguised
Right?
as a dude, disguised another dude.
I mean, have you heard of or played Lisa the Joyful?
I mean, I think I heard about it, but I've never played it.
Have you heard of or played Omori?
Yeah, I know Maury.
Both of those, RPG Maker MV.
Oh, yeah, would have never guessed. It would be cool to see. Like, I think it'd be like, I don't think they would do it, but it would be like created by RPG Maker. Like,
They probably have to get some attribution somewhere.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
we don't want to get hands dirty on that
attributions
one.
not just for using the engine, but also with with certain scripts that were actually used in the development of these games.
Mhm.
Yeah, the attribution goes to the community members that authored those scripts as well. I mean, there have been people that have been trying to resurrect the death blow combat system from Xenogears in RPG Maker MV, myself being one of them.
That's a great
Thankfully, you
game
didn't say
to
air, guys.
it's a great game to drop while we're talking about the Rhetorical tonight. So that's kind of cool that that game showed up also. Another fun, notable game was Ready to Rumble Boxing Round 2, which is the sequel to Ready to Rumble Boxing. Yeah, and from what I remember, my first experience with this was on the Dreamcast. So,
Okay.
and it was like the character models were really impressive. There was more polygon count, and from what I recall, I was like, wow, the Super Nintendo really sucks in comparison to the Dreamcast. Not Super Nintendo. Sorry, PlayStation 2. Wow, Super Nintendo. Going way back.
Hey,
Yeah, no
like,
shit, it
you're
looks
a one
different.
console household. Maybe you got the SNES late, and then you're like, "Ooh, Dreamcast."
Yeah. Well, I remember like because I really wanted a Dreamcast, right? And
Mhm.
it was just like way out of my price range. From I think was PS2 was already out, from what I remember.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, this
And
was what, 99?
yeah, and I think Nick will appreciate this. I always thought of the Dreamcast as the bridge that technically killed the arcades because it was starting to become like the home console was becoming, if not similar or then better than the arcades. Thanks to like Soul Calibur and Ready to Rumble, like the graphics were like very very close, and I was like, I'm having the arcade experience at my house, and this is awesome.
Yeah, and it helped that the Dreamcast had it didn't well, if anyone who's like a retro collector now tries to look back at it, the Dreamcast does not have a huge library. Obviously its history is that it failed essentially,
Yeah.
but it was that connection, like you said, to the arcades. You had some games that ran better on the disc than they did in the arcade. I remember a couple of Marvel games that came out, and like Third Strike on the Dreamcast as
Hmm.
well.
Yep.
Played the heck out of that. I didn't have a Dreamcast. I went to a buddy's house who his family had it, and like I stayed over one night. We're eating pizza pockets, staying up late, playing his Dreamcast, and I didn't even know it existed at that point. But I remember, like, I immediately was like, I want this, and I want Crazy Taxi,
Yep, that's me.
like,
That was me. That was me.
and Jet Grand Radio. Like, I just really loved the vibe of it. And it wasn't until like way later when I was actually working at a retro store that I could afford to buy a Dreamcast, with my adult money.
Right.
But yeah, no, that was because that was 99, and then the PS2 was late 2000. So the Dreamcast had like a year-ish jump on them. That's why they wanted that like to really like rock the market, and why they were kind of freaking out. They wanted to get ahead of the PS2. But if some people don't remember, well, the big thing about the Dreamcast was it had a network plug-in on it.
Hmm.
It was one of the first consoles to really have that, and it was. Oh man, it was just so cool. It was such a cool idea behind a console. I wish it just had more software support.
It
Um,
was ahead of its time.
yeah,
I highly, I highly agree, and I would say I praise the Dreamcast for having very innovative like memory cards. Right, the VMU was cool. Right,
Hmm.
you said online capability was cool. Technical graphics were cool. I think it was also fast, from what I remember. Like the loading wasn't that very long in
Yeah, it was.
comparison to the
It
Saturn
was.
and the PlayStation.
It
and
was pretty snappy.
how many people like listening in right now and on this excellent call may have heard of Tamagotchis? Like you knew that little like digital creature. How cool were the VMU cards for the
Oh my
Dreamcast?
god.
I
When you
got
could
two
have like the
words.
little.
I have 2 words for you. Chow garden.
I loved those VMUs, and the batteries obviously died in them all the
Yeah.
time. But it was so cool to like look through and see the you could mess with your save files even when it's not plugged into your controller.
Yeah.
Like it really was ahead of its time in a lot of things, and it died before it could get its due, and the company moved on too. I mean, they pushed out
Yeah.
the Saturn so quickly. Um, I mean, for good reason. One of the best consoles of all time is the PS2.
Best
It
selling, yeah,
didn't
for sure.
yeah, it just there was no chance. It's got the largest library too, if I remember right, of all the consoles ever, if you're not including like digital stuff and
Yep.
constant
Correct.
like backwards compatibility. But
Yeah, like that.
it
Like native PS2, I believe the library for that one was like
it's
three,
four
four
it's four
thousand.
digits. It's four digits easily. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I believe that's not including the PS1 library. That is including international, getting up into the few grand, but even in the US it was massive.
Yeah.
So I can't
All
blame
I
it.
all I know is it was a great console. It was expensive. I had to rent it a few times to appreciate it. And then by the time it was all over, everybody was pirating their video games. That's kind of what I learned from that era, and I was kind of like, I was like torn. I was like, oh, you're broke. You're like sick. I can download my video games, right? But at the same time, you're like, I love this system when I want to support it, but I have no money. So it was rough. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to do an episode about Sega and Dreamcast because, like, I feel like I would learn so much from that. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, Ready to Rumble 2 boxing, guys. I think the first one, no, the second one had Michael Jackson as the final
Mhm.
boss, right? MJ
Uh,
is what they called him.
no, he was just in there as Michael Jackson.
Really? All right, nothing like getting your ass beat by the King of Pop. That's what I
And
remember.
and boy, boy was Mike busted.
Bro, he was. I remember raging on that game a lot because the game was kind of hard from what I remember, but it was fun. So content. All right. So
Speaking of content,
yeah.
I did have one more for that day.
Oh sure.
Just
Go
as
back.
a little footnote, just because we do talk about like the history and stuff. One of the things that happened in video game history was a little company called Ninja Theory was bought
Mm,
by Argonaut Games on this day back in
mm.
I think it was 2000
And Ninja Theory
October
is
23rd 2000. Yeah.
Setsuna Blade, right? And then what's the
Yeah,
one on the PlayStation 3?
PS3 was
Heaven
Heavenly Sword.
Heavenly Sword. That was the one.
Yeah.
I like
But
that
I
game.
mean, Kung Fu Chaos, Heavenly Sword, Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, which is
I
I
like that one
believe a
too.
little underrated. Obviously, the
Underrated.
Hellblades games are what we know. They did the definitive edition of DMC, Devil May Cry 2, which
Yeah,
some people don't like.
I like that. Yeah.
But the fact that that company has been around for a long time, I mean, that it was bought by Argonaut Games, which, if you're not familiar with them, I
Which
don't
has been
believe they're
around
around
for
anymore.
even longer.
Yeah, they were doing Croc and Croc 2. They
Yep.
did like the sad Hagrid, Harry Potter Sorcerer's Stone, like PS2 Hagrid.
Like
But I mean
Argonaut was actually pretty big with PC releases back in the mid '90s too.
yeah, they did a lot of stuff, and they were around a long time. I think they started in Genesis and DOS games in the 80s.
Yeah. I do
Yeah,
remember their
yeah.
logo
Afterburner
also.
2.
Oh gosh, I love that game.
Yeah.
So there's something
But
wild about. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, but a fun note, just because we were talking about SNES and stuff, Argonaut actually developed a Super FX chip
Oh
for the
really?
Star Fox title.
Yep,
That's where I saw the
that's
logo when I
yep.
was playing
Yeah,
Dirt
Because
Tracks. Dirt
because yeah,
Track FX.
Argonaut developed the Super FX chip, freaking Star Fox, Vortex.
yeah, but they were known for a bunch of publishers. They bought Ninja Theory at one point before Ninja Theory was spun out, but just kind of a cool like point in history where these these interchanging kind of relationships that these companies have. It's pretty crazy to kind of look back on. Anyway, on to Dot Hack.
No, I was gonna say that is crazy that if you think about it, the company that made Croc bought a dev studio that made Ninja's Heavenly Blade, Heavenly Sword. It's
Right.
like, what the hell? That's kind of crazy. Anyway, speaking of hacks, here's the next game here. What the heck is happening? All right, there we go. Dot Hack GU Volume 1 Rebirth. Thank you, Japan, for all your crazy titles. Came out on the 24th 2006. I almost said this year. I'm dying on this side. Which makes it what? A 22, oh no, 18-year-old
18,
game?
old enough to drink.
Old enough to go to war and vote. There you go. I put this here because it's like regarded as like one of the later end titles of the PS2, and was extremely hard to find until it was reprinted a few years ago on the PlayStation 4. So Jago says it's a pseudo MMO RPG. I haven't played it, so you guys have any
Oh
say on
yeah.
that?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, really? On a
It
PS2?
really is. And if you're a fan of just like anime stuff in general, and you like Sword Art Online, for example, Dot Hack has come signing kind of some similar vibes with it too. Like it that idea of being in an MMO game as that character, not like we're talking World of Warcraft or anything like that. It's definitely worth checking out though. Absolutely. It's a cool story. Obviously it was over a group of games. I think there was 4 of the original series and then
Yep.
4 of the GU.
Yep.
So I know they're collector's items as well nowadays. Getting those sealed, you've got some serious bucks. And then if you get it graded, I mean, we could have a whole discussion about that. But
And on
I
top of that,
definitely
the
think
anime has probably one of the most memorable openings that you will have ever seen on Toonami.
there you go.
Toonami.
So check
Wow,
that out.
name drop. Name drop. Oh, there, Toonami. But man, you can't come out of nowhere and just drop Toonami. All right, that's a whole new different podcast to talk about. Skull
Right.
Shade say played Roots on PSP in Japanese. I don't know what Roots is, but sounds anime-ish. Jago says 4 games, books, and anime. Yeah.
It's got an
Yeah,
entire thing. It's
yeah,
a
it is.
universe.
This is like I said, the tail end of the PS2, so there wasn't a lot of copies released for this, and there was also a trilogy, so which I feel like if you had to be a fan to continue playing it, You know, I'm guessing the first one sold the most, and they progressively sold less as things go, because Volume 4 of the original Dot Hack is the most expensive one. I think for that reason.
Hmm.
Fun fact: I own 1, 2, 3, never owned 4, and I refused to buy the fourth one, so I just sold the other 3, and they were sealed because I was like, "This is pretty cool. I want to play this all in one sitting." And this life happened and never got a chance. But blessed to Bandai Namco for re-releasing the Dot Hack trilogy, GU trilogy to be specific. So this way, you don't have to spend buku bucks to get it. You can play it on your PS4 for like $30 or something like that. So, anything else on GU, guys?
Uh, Nothing else on GU, but well, if we're gonna be moving on to the next game, there is one more that came out
Oh
on
yeah,
the 24th that
yeah.
I'm definitely wanting to bring up.
Yeah, another notable release that came out today was Armor Core 2. And I think Ace has something to say about that.
Yep, Armored Core 2. Now, again, this is another game where I feel like I can timestamp not just my life, but also, you know, my the social interactions over the course of my life with that, because, you know, Armored Core, Project Phantasma, and Master of Arena, those 3 games I had spent like hours with my friends. Just, we'd put together our builds, and once Master of Arena came out, you know, we'd like we would port our builds forward from Armored Core to MOA, and we'd have ourselves Unga matches where we'd just go in with like, I think it was like nothing but shotguns and laser blades. And we would go in with like the heaviest cores we could build and just duke it out. But then once Armored Core 2 came out for the PS2, again, it was like another paradigm shift, like what happened with, going between Super Mario Land and Super Mario Land 2. It was like the same with going from the Armored Core games to Armored Core 2. It was taking place, on Mars instead of Earth now, and this, the ACs had a more futuristic design to them, and then on top of that, like I think it was in 2, if not another age, but we also got the chance to finally put together builds that were specifically melee focused. We're talking, like, how normally you'd have the weapon arms with like the Gatling guns or the rocket launchers, but Armored Core 2 actually introduced laser blade weapon arms.
Was that so the melee weapons weren't on the first game?
The melee weapons were in the first game, but you didn't have like arms specifically built with just those.
Oh, okay. I get you.
So yeah, I
Army.
remember like how you could have like tank ACs with like the cannon arms or the Gatling gun arms. Like these are
Yeah.
literally just arms
Just
with
blades.
no hands, just the laser blades. And then you could still have like your shoulder weapons too.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, yeah. It's been a while, so yeah, I don't even remember that was a thing. So, but yeah, so like, I mean, I haven't even played the latest one. Like, and I know there's a few far between games in between. Have they changed a lot since then?
Since 2, I could definitely say that the series has changed a lot since 2. Because again, as From Software had actually, split off from having Age Tech as their publisher, FromSoft was actually starting to get, more into working on games like Dark Souls and Demon Souls, and they took basically what they had done with both of those games, especially control wise,
Yeah.
and started implementing that in the Armored Core games, which I will say kind of took me out of the series for a little bit, but being able to actually, rebind my controls and set it back up, set everything back up to how I was used to on the PS2 playing Armored Core 2 and 3, definitely brought me back in. It definitely brought me back into 6.
Okay. Yeah, I man, that another game I need to add to the list. Jeez. Ooh, I also want to do a comparison between like just all the Armored Core games, but I feel like time is not my friend lately. So,
No,
speaking of,
remember when you asked me 2 weeks ago, like, what my recommendations were, and I'm like,
yeah,
"Get through your backlog because
yep,
2025 is unforgiving."
dude, no mercy on the wallet nor my time. So, and speaking of time, I do remember my first game I ever bought on the PlayStation One, and that was Vandal Hearts. Um, so
Bro.
I have a story for this game. I'll keep it short. So I bought my PlayStation from Software Etc. in the Bellis Fair Mall from when it was still there. I think Software Etc. was where Aeropostale was. If you guys remember that. Um, yeah, it was a long time ago, back in the dark ages. And then I had a choice to buy two games that day. Options to buy two, but I only bought one. The first game was Vandal Hearts. The second game, the choice, was Dragon Ball GT. and then I was
Final
like,
bout or
Final Bout. It was Final Bout.
uh
And so
I'm
it,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, I haven't played either. I was just really excited to see a Dragon Ball game in America because right, they're all imported. And you weren't able to get stuff online yet during this era in '96. So, and then I do remember some ads and magazine articles on Final Fantasy Tactics, and I was like, it's not out yet, but I do want to kind of like satiate my thirst for a strategy game like that. So Vandal Hearts was the next best thing, and it was available. And it's the first game I bought. Remember it fondly. It was really good, surprisingly. I didn't expect much from Konami at the time because their games were more action oriented, right? Silent and right now I think also Silent Hill and stuff like that. But they're known for like Contra, right? Run and guns, shoot 'em ups, stuff like that, beat 'em ups
Mhm.
too. Not really known for the strategy games, but I was actually quite impressed with Vandal Hearts story and gameplay wise. I was rather impressed. So this is why that was my choice for this week in gaming history. So, either of you guys have any history with Vandal Hearts?
Only a little. I didn't really get around to playing it much.
Yeah, it wasn't very known. Like I said, Konami releasing a strategy game was kind of crazy at that time. It wasn't expected, so I'm surprised they made it out. So, about you, Nick?
No, not with Vandal Hearts. Mostly just experiencing it when people bring it in to trade or buy, and just knowing that it's a little difficult to get a hold of, especially anything in those original jewel cases too,
Okay.
and having the manual. So I never played it. I just remember seeing it and I recognized the cover art.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, and then there's a sequel also clearly that came out with this. But yeah, I just remember fond memories of this game. And that's why I chose it. Another notable game release this day. I just lost it. Oh, it was Soul Calibur 3 on the PlayStation 2. Arguably the worst one, according to a lot of people. I don't know why. Because it gave us a lot of options. But hey, if you guys are in chat, don't agree, or you agree, let us know.
Hey,
What do you
I
think?
I know for me, not being like a hardcore fan of it, I missed the like adventure mode from 2. I just felt like 3 was a pared down of a lot of like the cool things you could do in 2, if I remember right. But also 2 had those special characters that came in as well. You didn't really have that same kind of like draw at first with 3, at least it wasn't on the covers. So I
Mm,
feel like it just kind of pushed people away. It felt like less, even if it wasn't, even if there was more in the game. That's just kind of my take on it.
yeah.
that's fair. Uh, with with two, I mean, I had it on the PS2, so I had the Heihachi copy. But three, like honestly, for me, and again, I'm probably the outlier here, but three for me was actually one of the best in the series. If you know, at the very least, at the very least, top half of the series, and it was largely because of like e- even though it may have been a little pared down compared. It may seem a little bit pared down compared to the adventure mode that was in, the conquest mode in Soul Calibur 2. Chronicles of the Sword was a great deal more, immersive for me as far as the story that it actually set up, that parallel story running alongside the game. But also, since Soul Calibur 3 was the first in the series that was console exclusive for a time, that also meant, you were just right out the box getting all the extra goodies that Bandai Namco was known for adding to their home console releases of fighting games. And that included the character creator in Soul Calibur 3.
That's where it started from what I remember, because 2 didn't have that.
Yeah, two didn't have it, but 2 still had a way you could customize what characters you were taking through Conquest.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think a lot of people argue that 3 wasn't as good because the combat wasn't on point as the 2 was, because everybody loves 2. It's kind of like the big leap between Street Fighter 2, whatever number, and then SF3. It's like, to them, like, to Soul Calibur players, they that's how they felt. It was so different, right? So I can kind of empathize with that if that's really what direction they're going with. But as for me, you know, I usually play those fighting games as far as, like, following the characters. I'm a huge character guy, and Siegfried kind of like separating himself from Nightmare was a big thing for me. And I thought that was like, oh, they're 2 different characters. That's so sick. Like, that was a selling point for me right then. So I'm easily impressed when you show me cool characters. So
I also
uh,
don't remember a lot of the Soul Calibur 3 edition characters lighting the world on fire when they came out, like
yeah,
Tira,
Zasalamel.
Setsuka, yeah, Zazalamel. Like, I don't know those as really being fan favorites. We didn't see them at tournaments a lot. I think that versus like just the character roster you had in 2, maybe. Like I said, it just didn't light it on fire as far as like the for me the marketing side, or what I remember when
Yeah,
it came out and sales and stuff. Not to say it's a bad game at all. There's always things to find in there, nuggets to get, and people are going to have their favorites. It's going to resonate with different people. It's just
yeah,
something that I could see the argument being made, and I could see the
yeah.
argument being made in the other direction.
No, that's
Oh,
a
you
good
also
point.
got like, what was it, the owl guy? The owl guy you could unlock in 3 as well. He had like the
Edgemaster,
owl head.
Yeah.
great name.
And here's another little something for you. As you played through and got towards like the end game in Chronicles of the Sword, you could unlock what was it? You could unlock, you could unlock damn it, the customization items. There was a set based on Cosmos from Xenosaga.
Was that
And
that was in 3? I thought that was in 4.
that was in 3.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And yeah, you could unlock that near the end of the game. And I I remember actually doing that, and showing it off to a couple of my friends at the time, and it seemed like that right there, at least from a lot of the people that I've been hanging around with, it seemed like that right there actually started getting more people into Soul Calibur 3, because Xenosaga was already out, people were playing that, and they were like, what's going on over here? And then seeing you know seeing Cosmos bust out Maxi's nunchucks in Soul Calibur 3, they were like, excuse me, what? You could do that?
I you
And
know
that kind of kicked off more. It kicked off more of its positive swing.
I'm just looking at this character, man. I don't know.
you talking about
God.
Edgemaster?
If you can't see the Discord page, I got questions.
That's so funny. I think one would argue that was like Soul Calibur to me was probably one of the most not influential, but I'd say it's the series that really brought guest characters from other games into another game, right? From memory. And I think that'd be a great topic to cover also, like when the what guest characters from other games appear in other games and the history of that. Because I feel like it's more prominent now because companies have different blood now than it was back then. So
Right.
console wars aren't as crazy as they were before. So yeah.
Nope. Just
Anything
corporate
else to
wars.
add to these 2 games, Vandal Hearts or Soul Calibur 3?
Nope. Nothing
None for
else for
me.
me.
Okay, cool. All right, moving on to our first article of the night, which is thank you, Restream. Black Myth Wukong gets officially a physical copy. I wanted to cover this specific one because, uh, you know, I'm a fan of physical games, as you see from the Gaming Academy stock room. more games to play than I have time. And to me, a game that is this celebrated in this time deserves to have a physical edition, especially since the nature of the game, which is a single player action RPG, right? And I do recall them releasing a collector's edition of this, but it came with a game code because that's how companies are going, that route that they're taking. But there was no physical copy to be bought. So, and if you guys, know anything else in chat, let me know. But this article comes from Vicky Blake from Eurogamer.net in a tweet posted earlier today on the game's official X account. Game Science thanked players for their patience and said that now Black Myth Wukong's master disc is ready. The PS5 physical editions were coming soon. If you're hoping for a solid commitment or release date, I'm afraid Game Science stopped short of giving any specific dates, only committing to a vague statement that the physical game would be available very soon, air quotes. So, Destin Ones, thank you for your patience, the team said. With the master disc for a Black Myth Wukong ready, the physical PS5 edition will be available to you. There's still no word about an Xbox version. However, last month, Microsoft once again confirmed that the delay of the Xbox release of Black Myth Wukong is not due to platform limitations. But even though Game Science's action RPG was released in August on PC and PS5, the Xbox version is still delayed for unknown reasons. Speculation grew that the developer was struggling to run the game on the Series S console. That's what I thought. While other rumors suggested the game was in fact a PS console exclusive. So, what do you guys think about that? I'm a fan of physical games. I believe all games should really be released in all systems as close as possible, right? Without sacrificing the integrity and the quality of the game, of course, from hardware limitations. So it's good to see that they're still releasing it on Xbox as well.
Oh yeah, like I mean, this Black Myth Wukong is definitely one of those games where the more widespread it gets released and the more platforms it can be released and played on, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing it actually get a physical print as well is just that extra icing on the cake.
I would love to see a physical disc of this, with a steelbook. I think that would send a message.
Black
Yeah, man. I think that would send a message in the gaming industry. Like,
a Black Myth Wukong steelbook would be absolutely fire.
Like, I mean, look at this artwork right here. Imagine like a gunmetal black steelbook, right?
I'm thinking the same style as the Ghost of Tsushima steelbook.
Yeah, oh man, with some maybe some filigree on there that would make it super extra. It'd be super
a little
sick.
Embossing, please.
Oh my god, stop! Yeah, I geek out about that stuff because I bought it and it's physical, and we all work hard for our money and we want to celebrate our championship and our hunt and our rewards for our hunting, right? So that's kind of how it is. It's my caveman brain telling me that. And, that's why I love physical, and it's good to hear that Black Myth Wukong is getting a physical release. When? We don't know. And if you're an Xbox owner, they don't know either. I think it's BS that they're not saying it's hardware limitations, because it's known for the Xbox S is known for hey, we can't run it as good as on the X. So if they would have just said it's only on the Series X, not at the S, I think I would accept that answer. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of games coming out lately that have begun just skipping the S, just because it's bringing down the entire production in order to build another version that is going to run on that, or it pulls the entire project down to be able to run on that. It's kind of the thing we've been talking about for years with PC games, and how they've been having to design their games like the middle of the road kind of PC in order to get the biggest markets possible. You're starting to see a change in that, especially as consumer habits change and people are starting to build their rigs up. I mean, a lot of us nowadays are building rigs to play 20-year-old games. Like, they can handle it just fine. But I agree. I skip the S, something for the X, especially with like how in depth and graphically, I'll say challenging this game is. I haven't
Mhm.
put time into it myself. I've watched some of the stuff you've done. I've watched some of the stuff other content creators have done. It's certainly not my style of game, so I won't personally purchase it.
Yeah.
But it is fun to watch and fun to look at, and it's cool to see like the Odyssey to the West stuff being played out the way it is in this game, given a little bit more of that culture story to the industry.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you brought up Enslaved earlier, so because it's kind of it's kind of a
Yeah,
thing, so that's really cool. I like that. But yeah, it's I think that like I said, this being released in physical also tells us that they go, hey, I sold really well, and now we're gonna put money into printing a physical because I feel like there's a lot of other games out there that do get a physical, but it's like why so it's
yeah,
like because I know like the industry right now is kind of like teetering on like us not owning our games but the license to be able to play their game, right? So physical
Mhm.
is for single player games specifically, I think is very important as well.
and let's be honest with the company that's behind this. You have to think about like the publishing as well. Logistically, the publisher just may not have had the deal to have a physical release in it.
Yeah,
Maybe it didn't make sense, dollars and cents to them in the back end to do a physical release. But then they see the response it's got. They see its concurrent players. They see the amount of money it's making. It's like we can release this physically. We should release this physically. Like take that lightning in the bottle we got right now and like run with it.
I agree. I think honestly the business decision, because that's my favorite part about talking about these kinds of things, is they were probably like game science was probably like, let's test it out, see if anybody likes it. And if but since it like sold like hotcakes, they were like, yeah, we can finally have money to, print out the physical, because I feel like that would be their goal also.
And then let's add to that just the simple fact that in in today's gaming landscape, there is a not insubstantial number of people who look at a game, go, "Oh, this game looks awesome." But I won't buy it unless I could physically own it.
Yeah, that's me right here.
I,
That's me.
I
And
will say though that those because I, especially after working in a retail store, I was retail video games. I definitely prefer physical as well. But I will say just the changes to like Games Pass and the digital landscape, like it's become even more okay for me to try games out digitally and not have to spend the money on physical. So
yeah,
I get it, but there's definitely like GQ saying it's one of those things like there's some games like I would love a physical of.
Yeah,
That was for me. I mean, we've talked plenty of times about my love for the Like a Dragon Yakuza series. I couldn't get a physical copy of Ishin, the Edo period Japanese one that
mhm.
was only released in the East. And a friend of mine went to Japan, bought a copy for me, so I have a physical copy now. But I wanted that on my wall for the longest time. And then, of
Nice.
course, I came out with a, a version of the US finally, which was awesome. But
I do remember that. Like you wanted that game to come out here for a while, and then
yeah,
like
I
we,
was on that train early. I was a
yeah.
trendsetter for that one.
No, you were honestly you were because I think we were still working together at that point, and I was like, they're already releasing the next Yakuza before this one, and I was like, well, I think it'd be cool to have like a Edo Japan Yakuza, right? But I don't
And then I
know.
dropped that knowledge. They did.
Yeah, they did. Just you wait, sir. Just you wait. Yeah, so I want to move on to our next one here. I think Ace, I want your kind of like feedback on this one because I did like you do have a history with working with Nintendo. So I don't know if you have any NDAs or anything like that. Feel free to not answer anything you don't feel comfortable with. But the next conversation topic tonight is the Nintendo Switch Online playtest program has been recently leaked. So I read a little bit about this, but if you know more or if you know anything about it, feel
yep.
free to chime in since you're the inside man for this one.
Uh,
Um,
nothing from me, largely because when I left Nintendo back at the end of last year,
mhm,
there wasn't any mention of the online playtest program.
okay, and they're probably like I said, it's probably One, it could be a disgruntled employee, it could be anybody, right? These leaks. So, but the article is brought to you by NintendoEverything.com by Brian. The official website for the Switch Online playtest program was updated today, revealing details about the whole thing and what it is actually about. There's been plenty of speculation as to what Nintendo has been planning. Various theories have been floating around, including GameCube support on Switch Online, a potential Miiverse return, and more. However, it turns out that Nintendo is testing out a new kind of game. Based on official images shared by ex user Ethan underscore this guy, the goal is to work with others to fully develop a massive and expansive planet by utilizing creativity and framed resources. New lands, enemies, and resources will appear while the players progress across the planet. One core part of the experience are beacons, which emit a healing light that purifies and develops the land. The
Okay,
description.
this is starting to sound like some straight up MMO Street Pass type shit.
All right, all
So
right.
that's what I was just gonna say. That's what some of the articles were saying, and he might call that out here in a second.
Hold that thought. Yeah. The description points out how players repeat the process until their current planetary block is considered fully developed. Another aspect of the game mentioned is the dev core, which is like a social hub. Here, players can gather with others while also leveling up their characters, getting items, and more. There's a few releases that were leaked there. I'll link the article on the chat here to take a look at it. But based on what we heard shortly after the announcement of the test, it seemed Nintendo was against participants sharing information.
Mm.
Odd for a social game. Given the way the internet works, though, no one expects that request to hold. It's unclear what the plans are for this game beyond today. Meanwhile, participants will be able to give it a shot when it officially begins this Wednesday. If you missed the original Switch Online playtest program announcement, we got you covered here. All right, so there it is. Any speculation on what kind of game that's they're planning up their sleeve?
I mean, speculation is what the internet is all about when it comes to something like this. So when you first showed playtest program, I was a little confused because I worked in playtesting for a different company for the past 4 years, and that's part of the digital marketing that I was doing. So it's always interesting to see this kind of stuff get leaked. I mean, I remember when I was working on my previous team. For those companies, we'd see some stuff leak of the play tests that we did on like Reddit and stuff, and just like the fires those would create for the devs, for the people that are running it. Like it is a pain to have this stuff leak. It looks like it was data mined and then spread. So I mean, who knows if it's really like a disgruntled employee? Nonetheless, this sounds to me kind of like along the lines of something like Minecraft or Roblox, adding this like online kind of like cooperative kind of thing that you're building. It doesn't sound like high stakes or anything. It's like that meets PlayStation Home for me with that up, you know. So who knows? But it sounds to me like something like super lightweight, easy for people to get into, just an extension of some of the stuff they've done with creative hubs on some of their previous stuff. I mean, they had those kind of creative hubs with the Wii U even back in the day. Those little like games that you can play with other people. Again, lightweight kind of stuff. So, I mean, who knows? That's kind of what my vibe is on it, but we'll see when it actually comes out. With something like this, data mining, knowing it's a thing and getting some basics is fine, but until you get your hands on it, it's all speculation.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So what do we think? What kind of game this is? Clearly, it's social. You have to walk around using your
Yeah,
Switch.
social, that and creative. That's why I was thinking like Minecraft or Roblox kind of thing. Just those lightweight kind of MMO light kind of
Yeah,
things. That's really the vibe that I get from this, but I'm not the expert.
yeah. Here you go, Chad. I have a question for you because this is Nintendo, right? And it's first party. What previous franchise of Nintendo do you think this is related to? Immediately for my caveman brain, I don't know why, but I thought of Blast Core for some reason, and I was like, that made make no sense because it's a rare game. It's not a Nintendo game, right?
Blast core.
But think about the history of Nintendo games and what's released that would kind of like fall into the category of this game, right? So definitely not SimCity because SimCity is a Maxis game now. It's EA game technically because I play it every night, so it's not that. It could be
It may
new.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to me, it sounds like it'd be something new. Maybe utilizing assets. Like it could be something like uh Animal Crossing or something like that, where you have these kind of hubs where people can work together and it has assets from other games in it,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah, that's true.
It really have more of that kind of vibe from it. It's got to be a new IP utilizing resources. That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, they did say potential Miiverse return. You create a me, right, and that would be your
Yeah,
avatar. Also, the goal is to work with others to fully develop a massive, expansive planet by utilizing creativity and framed resources. So, yeah,
that
you're
sounds
gonna
like
be yeah,
that
you're
sounds
gonna
like
be
Minecraft a little bit to me.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
and honestly, I wouldn't put it past them to create a Minecraft version, but like in the Mushroom Kingdom or something like that.
I mean,
You know?
Minecraft has been gangbusters, and when those finally came out to other platforms, like there's definitely a reason to have it. And if they can bundle it into their own hub, especially as make a potentially a platform, just think of it this way: a platform that they're building now that's going to launch and be part of the ecosystem with the new Switch, because we're getting the Switch 2 in a
Yeah,
year. So there's got to be something building up to that. It could be that bridge
yeah.
for a lot of people. And we already know the Switch 2 can play Switch 1 games. So why not have that interactivity between the two consoles and you have an even bigger ecosystem?
I think you're right. I
That's
think
a
you're right.
solid idea.
I think this is like a road to the Switch 2. Like this is like, giving you a reason to get this. So this way, um, consumers can be like, oh, it's gonna run better on the Switch 2, and I already have a Switch. But I want to upgrade it, right? And this game that I like is gonna be even better. Kind of like, you know, like showcasing games on the PS5 Pro if you don't have a PS5 yet, right? Something like that.
Hmm.
So I highly doubt that, but hey, you never know. So let's see here. Andre
Yeah,
says,
it's like Squall's saying right there. For me, it's
yeah,
like a me verse version of No Man's Sky.
there you go. Smaller version of No Man's Sky. Then it says Nintendo, and Andre says Nintendo is old fashioned after all. Yes, they are very old fashioned, but yet successful. It is what they do. So
Hmm.
I have no idea. Hopefully it's a first party Nintendo, if not new. That would be cool if it was like World of Nintendo, where they take different IPs from Nintendo, right,
Oh
and then
man, I would
put them in
love
this
for them to
world.
bring back World of Nintendo, like those old school like neon lights they had, the World of Nintendo stuff. That's some nostalgia baiting, like
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well,
Brad.
I've never played it, but was Nintendo Land anything like this? You
What's
guys
that?
remember
That's a
Nintendo
good
Land?
question.
Was Nintendo Land anything sound like anything like this?
Oh my gosh, Nintendo Land.
Yeah, on the Wii
Oh,
U.
on the Wii U.
Yeah.
I don't remember that one very well. I remember seeing that one come in a lot because not a lot of people liked it.
Well, it was bundled with the Nintendo Wii U, so that's probably why. But yeah, that's what it is, guys. If you have any idea, let us know. To put it in chat, and we'd love to chat with you about that.
Or just throw
Um,
out your ideas because who knows? They could just be
yeah,
data mining this right now.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and speaking of ideas,
That's the thing about playtesting, man. They're gonna get some ideas from it.
we're gonna jump into our little segment for tonight. The super let me get the right window here with our cute anime waifu. The rhetorical. So this is actually a new segment on the show. This is where we take a where we dive deep into what ifs of the gaming world. This week's question, it's our first week, so it's a big one. If you could design or redesign your dream video game, what would you do? Whether you're imagining epic new worlds, fixing what's broken in a classic, or reimagining your favorite game with a fresh twist, we want to hear it all. So let your creativity run wild, and let's explore those dream game ideas together. So I really wanted to take this section to kind of like take the favorite things that we love in video games, and do we make something new, or do we make it? How could I make my favorite IP better? How do I bring it back? Like for example, I asked this question a lot when I was thinking of the Final Fantasy VII remake. Do we want to do a one by one with updated graphics, but the battle system's the same, right? Or do something like what they did with the game, where they kind of updated the battle system, they readjusted the story a little bit. It's not a one by one, And this is kind of what the rhetorical is all about. So, do you guys have any games that just come right off your head, or chat anybody there that you're like, hey, I really want to do this, if they should really do this with this franchise, something like that?
There's tons of stuff, man. And there's for me, especially when you said what ifs, the first thing
Yeah.
I thought about was just like what ifs with like the gaming industry as a whole. So I'll try to narrow it down because I'm thinking like I remember seeing on Reddit. I'll have to see if I can find the link in my past, but someone had like a gaming like alternative timeline, like what if Sega won? From what we
Yeah.
were
See,
talking about earlier,
that's cool too.
like that would be really freaking cool to think about, like
what
how
if
things would have changed if Nintendo didn't blow up the way they did,
Mhm.
but
what if
Sega
Sega
did.
won, or what if Sega decided to get back into the hardware business?
Well, what if the Sega Saturn didn't fail? Like, what if the Saturn was what it was supposed to be? Or we're always kind of thinking about complaining that there's not enough console options out there for a while. Like, not anymore because we don't have enough time in the day or money in our wallet. But like, what if the 3DO didn't fail? Because that thing was
Ooh.
supposed to be something completely different when that thing came out. FMV videos, like if that had really taken off, like who knows, right? But if you want to talk about for like specific games, like what ifs or potential style switches, like I love the first thing that comes to my head, and this is just like spitballing, and there's
Love it.
tons of other things we can talk about it. But I love the lore and the world of Horizon, Zero Dawn, and Forbidden West. Like, what
Mhm.
if that game? It's not my style of game, but I'm just thinking the ability to explore that world. What if it was a survival game, like a survival MMO, where you are interacting with other people and different tribes in this post-apocalyptic world?
So like
And
Ark.
so like Ark, but with like Horizon's world though. Because the thing about Ark is
Okay.
sometimes it can
Kinda.
have that jank, but you have that grounded past. You're searching through the past and the history of these worlds and discovering what that lore is and trying to share that with other people. Like that would be so cool to me. And again, I'm not a big fan of survival games, but you have to like tie some kind of necessity to be moving forward. And if you die, maybe it's permadeath. Like you really are living in that world. Like I said, that's
Yeah.
just like one thing that just popped off the top of my head just because when I first played Horizon Zero Dawn, I was so pulled in by the world and the lore,
Yeah.
and that's what sold it for me.
Okay, so let me get this clear. You would create a Horizon Zero Dawn game like aesthetic in the world of Horizon, right? But you want it to be survival. Like when you say survival for the chat and for the audience, are you referring to like do you want it to be more like Green Hell or like like the forests where you build your base and stuff like that?
Essentially, yeah, where you are the
Okay.
tribes that are springing up
Okay.
after you come
Gotcha.
out of the arcs or whatever. I can't remember at the top of my head.
Yeah.
But that was just like that was something that sounds interesting to me. Like, what if you are the first people to come out of those pods, essentially, and you are
Hmm.
creating those tribes? You are
Gotcha.
becoming the basis of the entire lore.
That's awesome. I think I personally haven't played. I think the good person to ask is my girlfriend, right? But that actually is great to expand on that franchise. I dig it. I approve it. How much money do you need?
Yeah,
so
right.
so
Oh,
with
this is
it,
Shark Tank. I didn't know we are
yeah,
doing
yeah,
Shark Tank. I thought it was rhetorical.
yeah. Would you clearly it would be a multiplayer, right? It'd be online, right?
It'd have to
Um,
be, especially if
do
you're
you?
talking about multiple different tribes. You could choose the tribe you want to be in, and there's going to be like
Yeah.
Right.
faction battles and stuff too. You're fighting over
Okay.
resources.
So
Like I said,
would
not
you?
everyone's cup of tea, but that's just
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that leapt out to me.
No, it's cool. That's why I want to keep talking about it. Would you clearly there's different because I know there's different tribes in there. So I'm assuming each tribe would have their own benefit, like they're better in sand or like forest,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Well, the one of the biggest things, because since you haven't played it, which I highly recommend you
All
do.
right, I've watched my
Uh,
girlfriend play. It looks interesting. Yeah.
okay, but each of the factions have their own armor types too, and so like you
Yep.
said, their benefits. So the
Yep.
ones that are in sand have stuff that's like not meant for hiding in the bushes kind of thing. So they
Okay.
can't be concealed, but they're more bruiser types kind of thing.
I like it. No, hey. And would you still have Sony make it, or was it Guerrilla Studios?
Gorilla, absolutely.
Okay.
If I would say Gorilla just because of what they've been able to do with that world, but if I could talk about like so in this what if, like if I could put a company behind it, the only other company that I can think of games I've played where I enjoyed just the open world and the fluidity of it, it's going to
Yeah.
be something like Playground Games. and what they've done with like the Forza Horizon series, which I love a lot. I'm really interested to see how they do Fable. So I mean, the jury's still out on whether or not they can do that kind of game. But
Mhm.
I love the worlds they build. They're so detailed and just nuanced, and Gorilla obviously fantastic work. But if I had to like what if it in this case, that's just what pops off the top of my head.
Okay, cool. Ace, any thoughts on the Horizon stuff, or do you have any?
Or Ace, let me hear what your pitch is
No, no,
because
we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. Don't
Oh,
worry about
I've got some ideas. Trust
it.
me,
Okay,
I've
okay.
got some ideas.
Before
Some of them I've
you,
actually been writing up, but we'll
I
wait.
know. Before we get there, let me read some of the stuff that the chat said. So, Squall Shade said, "World of Dragon Quest, like what they did with World of Final Fantasy." That's a good one,
yeah.
actually. Pretty
Yeah.
good. The Blue Riot bot. Hey, welcome, Blue. Proper Shadow Man remake, not clunky and a bit more story focused.
Oh, the Shadow Man.
Man, that would be a great remake, actually, with the assets that we have available to us now. It'd be so much creepier, like so good. Andre Venom 95 says Sega unleashes the Dreamcast 2 only if that was a thing.
Only if.
He also said Duke Nukem Forever, but good.
Damn.
Man, I think this is Andre's favorite section. He's just dropping ideas here. Vagrant Story gets a second game. Wow. Okay.
Oh,
A Yakuza game where you play as the villains instead.
I'll be very surprised if they don't release a game like that for a DLC. I'll be honest. They've already
Right.
cut into sub stories where you play as them here and there. So I
Yeah.
mean, just go full send.
Yeah. I think like that right there. As for you as a Yakuza fan, I'd be like, what is their big red button that they can push to like get everybody back into it? So.
They already hit it. They already hit it multiple times.
Okay, they're like
They're
just spamming it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sega's nailed that button a couple times. It took great success, by the way. Like they did really well with the turn-based change, and people were like, "Oh, I really wish the brawler style was back." So like, okay, we'll just send out this one. Here's a one in between where it's the brawler style, and look, Kiryu's back. It's just like
Yeah.
they've
I
done it. They've
mean,
done it already. I don't think that
hell,
that is like
like
a big red send, but it's a
their
good idea.
their panic button was Yakuza 0.
No,
Oh
that
no,
wasn't a
not 0.
panic button.
Kiwami.
Like Kiwami was the big one. Well, Kiwami was the first big red button, but then Yakuza 0, and again getting the chance to play as Majima. Come on.
What happened with
Made
so do you think that happened with Dead Souls? Like were they just like, let's try something different?
Oh god.
Like
I don't know what drugs they were on.
somebody
I'm
what if
sure
that?
yeah, someone what if that one into existence and they should have
Yeah.
sent it to the Shadow Realm. I think that was just a style at the time on the PS3, all the zombie shooters that were out. Like that was
Right.
an entire cultural zeitgeist, so they pushed the series into it. They just put it into that box.
Yeah, like look at us guys, we do it too. That's kind of how I felt when that
Right.
game came out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it did too, because it was so rough. It was so rough and jank, but yeah,
Um,
that was just one of those of the time things because you think of that era, like what was popping off too, like Left 4 Dead.
yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah. Check out our
huge.
playthrough. Nick and I's playthrough. Let's see here. What else? Andre says Sonic Extreme happens. Blue Rightbot says that actually is rumored live services for Sony currently, Nick.
That was in response to the That was in
Right.
response to Horizon.
That's what I
Yeah,
figured.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's been rumored for a bit. We'll see what happens. And if it's anything along the lines of what I was saying, I mean, I'm pumped for it. That's just like I said, first thing that popped into my head. And cool, great minds.
Here's a weird one. Shenmue series finally gets a wrapped up. I thought it was wrapped up.
Oh,
Nope.
yeah. I mean, 3.
Okay, no spoilers.
Yeah.
Not play yet. Lufia 2 with Lufia 3. That's a reach. Good job. I like that one. Project Justice third year. Holy smokes. Man, these are all good, guys. Let's see here. Fantasy Star RPG with Fire Emblem elements. Wow, that is really good. I like that one a lot. Let's see here. Virtua Fighter 6. I love you. That's all I'm gonna say. Jago's also added fighting Mega Vipers and all Sega fighters in a mega collection. I love all that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean,
All right.
this might, like, again, my what ifs are like way more like not so much the game, but
Yeah.
like bigger scale things.
Mhm.
Like, what if the Nintendo PlayStation actually happened? So there wasn't that split. What
Mhm.
if Nintendo accepted the buyout from Microsoft back in the day, because
Oh
they did
man.
do a buyout option, or they tried to buy Nintendo. Like, those are
Instead of
huge
laughing
what
in their
ifs. But
face.
I just saw something that was said in the chat that just reminded me, what if they actually finished the Xenosaga series?
Sad. I just got sad all of a
Because we
sudden.
only got 3, and it was supposed to be 7.
Uh,
We
uh.
needed more German subtitles. Like, we need
Zur heißt der Gast, something like that. Yeah, Ace, what did you have in mind, man? Go ahead.
All right. So there's a couple that I've talked about previously at length. So I'll just, mention them here to kind of, refresh the well. But one, a Chrono Trigger remake. Now, considering the direction that Square Enix went with Final Fantasy VII, remaking that into more of an action-based RPG as opposed to, turn-based, what if they did something like that with Chrono Trigger? Let's consider the assets and the tech that's available now that's, present in games like Dragon Quest 10, 11, and 12. You've got your Toriyama RPG characters in 3D, so it should not be a stretch to do so with the cast of Chrono Trigger and with the settings in Chrono Trigger. But considering, my personal opinion on, some of the things that Square Enix has gotten involved with, just business decisions wise, what I think would be the best developer to actually work on a Chrono Trigger remake would actually be Cygames. And
Okay, I think last time you mentioned this in the study hall, it was
Yep,
because of a good job they did with Grand Blue Fan Relink.
with Grand Blue Relink,
Yeah.
exactly. But moving that off to the side, let's get into the meat and potatoes of my big rhetorical.
Okay.
Okay, y'all know full well that whatever your opinion may be on, say, Samurai Warriors or Dynasty Warriors, you can't deny the fact that when it comes to licensed games, Koei Tecmo has not missed. They haven't missed since their first Gundam game. They haven't missed since their first One Piece game. Attack on Titan, both games were absolutely stellar. Same with Fist of the North Star. So, let the folks at Koei Tecmo, let the folks at Omega Force get their hands on the licenses for these two franchises. Stay with me here. Star Wars or X-Men.
Okay.
And do licensed Muso games based off of those franchises.
Muso games.
I
I
mean,
mean,
Put the Muso bent on it. I should have known.
all right,
Yeah,
all right, all right.
you
Let's focus on
should have known.
let's focus on Star Wars here for a second. Let's take a chat about Star Wars one. Okay, so the first thing I can think of is Power Battles 2, Jedi Power Battles 2, but in Muso form,
Why
right?
not?
Right? And yeah, 100%. And they could reenact it where like it's the Clone Wars, whatever, right? There's a lot of scenarios full of that. Okay, but you want Omega Force to make it. Okay.
Yeah, it like for Star Wars, I would definitely like Omega Force to make it. For X-Men, however, while Omega Force would still be a good developer, I feel like X-Men kind of leans, well, no, X-Men literally leans more in the superheroic direction. So instead of Omega Force, get Capcom.
Okay.
Get the team behind Sengoku Basara to do X-Men.
Okay. Capcom X-Men game. Okay. I can see that.
So, to build off that idea, just because I should not have been surprised that you went that route.
You
But
should
if you're
do
talking
it.
Star Wars,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, because it's already got a similar vibe, just speed it up to the Muso style, is using like the Force Unleashed and
Mhm.
its engines. Like, because
Yes.
it had the dynamic like damage and plant stuff. Like, if you had that kind of dynamic environment on top of the Muso, because one thing I will say about Muso, as much as I it's near and dear to my heart. It is the trash that I eat. It is like my isekai, it's my isekai trash meal that I eat. I may not like myself, but I'm going to eat it. Like,
Get that junk
uh,
food.
it does get a little jank with the people on screen, and the worlds can be kind of like bland and stuff, and they've been kind of battling that for multiple iterations. Like, so bring in those dynamic environments that we had, the kind of realized worlds of Force Unleashed,
Mm.
with then that Muso kind of bent on it, like you were saying. Like that, I think that's a great idea.
And then
Is
just
it physically, is it like actually possible? I couldn't say, but in this what if universe, it is possible, and we are rolling with it.
Yeah.
and then just take into account the sheer spread of characters that could, number one, be in at the start of the game, and number two, could be included as expansions and DLC.
Well, not even just the characters. Think of all the worlds they can go to. They have all the legends lore that they can pull from all of those planets that we haven't seen
Yeah.
before in any of these kind of like interactive environments we can visit now, not just Tatooine again,
Yeah. Outside
You
the
know,
movies, for sure.
Tatooine would be the Star Wars Muso equivalent of the Yellow Turtle Rebellion.
So I'll actually go into further detail on the game mechanics here for you, Ace. So Muso to start off, right?
Mhm.
But when you meet another general, could be another Jedi, could be a Sith, whatever. When they have their duels, it turns into like a Naruto arena battle.
So damn near what they did in Dynasty Warriors 4, 6, and what they're going to be doing in Origins.
Yeah, because like I feel like once you meet that other Jedi, it becomes a different game. Because you
It
can't
does.
just like it becomes
Well,
like a
I
1v1. Yeah,
right, but with that 1v1 style, I would almost push back on that just a little bit and roll it more like the Jedi Survivor series. When you're fighting some of those boss battles in that, when you actually have to switch up your
Mhm.
styles and the way
yeah,
you
yeah.
actually have to think about your force powers and your lightsaber, like I love the like Dark Souls light-ish kind of
Yeah,
vibe to them. Those are the kind
yeah.
of games I can get into. I can't do Dark Souls, but I loved the Survivor series. So when you're getting into that, I'd say throw that in instead. Not that what you had is a bad idea, but if I'm
No,
picking and choosing,
yeah, I
that's
agree
my
with you on
vibe.
that. Actually, it just that brought me back to playing the first one, and I was like, I actually had a good time playing the 1v1s in the boss fights in those games. So I
And the
agree with
boss
you.
fight at the end of the second one was tough, even with all
Yeah,
the like side stuff I did. Like it took me a while to get through that, but it felt worthwhile. It felt like you were really taking on someone that, it was serious. Like there was multiple phases. Not that every single one in our hypothetical game needs to happen that way,
yeah.
but I just think that would be more immersive. That will pull people in and really make you feel like you have ownership of that character.
I I think that's a great idea for like the single player, but if let's just say we take it to like a
Right.
multiplayer aspect of
Right.
it, I
Absolutely.
think
And that's why I was a little hesitant on it.
yeah, I think like just the regular standard like duels in Survivor after when you meet another Jedi, right? And I think like you got to give them purpose to like clear the field, kind of like what they're doing with the new Origins game, right?
Mhm.
That would make I feel like you would like harvest is a rough word, but like you would grind like the battlefield to level up your character, almost like a League of Legends style, right? Then you want to kill the other hero to kind of like push your army through. So that's very interesting how we were involving Muso and now MOBA is part of it now too. Like I think that'd be really the next level of Dynasty Warriors or Muso right there.
Right. And again, going back to just like the sheer spread of character, like the worlds would be amazing to just like see fully realized, especially in that type of, you know, in that type of battlefield combat scenario.
Yeah.
But just the sheer spread of characters and how uniquely each could play, or at least, each type of character could play. Because I mean, yeah, you've got your different Jedi characters with their, specialties or maybe even specialized weapons that they might wind up getting. But then, you have your non-Jedi characters that could still come in and, do a substantive amount of work once they actually hit the field. I mean, sure. I mean, you could have someone like, say, Luke, or, you could have someone like Luke or Ray or Cal, you know, work, doing, the Jedi sword work, right? Or like Obi-Wan or Anakin. But then you've got running gunners like Lando and Han and your big burly characters like Chewie.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like if you were to add like a character like Han in that game, it's been done before in Dynasty Warriors Gundam, where the rifle is the main weapon versus like the melee weapon, right? So
Or in Samurai Warriors,
yeah,
Makoichi.
yeah, absolutely. I can see it happening. I okay. How realistic do you think this could happen? Let's be real. Okay.
Oh no, I know this is. Come on,
No,
come on.
no,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, just real talk for sure.
There's certainly aspects from them we'll probably get or already have gotten, like you
Yeah,
said. But I don't see this obviously being
the,
a
the
thing.
license, right? The license is the hardest
It
part. Yeah,
the license the hardest part, and honestly, the things that I would want, because again, this is like we're talking about a hypothetical. If we made our
yeah.
own,
Hmm.
what our dreams were. If we're talking about that dream thing, there's stuff that just won't come to pass. Like what I would love to see in this game after Ace bringing up those different characters, some of the Star Wars Legends characters, the stuff that's considered non-canon now, that were in
Exactly
books and stuff that were so good, like having
right. The
Karan
Timothy Zahn
Horn.
trilogy.
Yeah. The Thrawn
Uh,
trilogy, having like the Jedi, like Karan Horn as a Jedi, was a super interesting, nuanced, and like deep character. One of my favorite series was the New Jedi Order when that came out. It was when
mhm.
those aliens from a different galaxy invaded. Like it'd be really cool to look at some of that scene, like the kids of them kind of thing. So it's just like there were so many cool stories in there that would be in this game for me, but it wouldn't be a thing in a game that's produced nowadays because of the licensing and it doesn't exist. And they do little like cool throwback kind of stuff and stuff like that. But yeah,
So
that's what I
my
see.
my other, I guess my design question would be aesthetically, visually, which art direction do you want to take it?
Ooh.
What other game would you want to see Star Wars characters rendered in that style?
Mm.
Honestly, I still think using the basis of the like an updated version of like the Force Unleashed
Yeah.
stuff, just because it needs that dynamic kind of environment. It's got to be in that style. It doesn't need to be hyper realistic. I don't think that's something you really need from this. It's supposed to be fantastical. This galaxy far, far away, and we've
Right.
seen that with the Jedi Survivor series too. Um, I don't know. That's just my take.
Yeah, I was just wondering which art team you'd like to kind of cover your game. Is what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh.
Because I think Koi character models look actually pretty good.
The heroes do,
Yeah, the
yes.
heroes do for sure.
Yeah. We'll talk about the basic
But
soldiers,
like
but they'll
they're
they'll
just
be stormtroopers or like
yeah,
rebel fighters anyway.
they're all gonna look the same anyway. Like
Right. And I mean, again, just playing through playing through the Clone Wars as a Battlefield action game, as a Muso game, would be just.
yeah. No, I understand that.
I think that would be pretty wild and something that could easily be done.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, I'm trying to get a visual in my head, right? Like, will it look like Battlefront but Muso, or will it look like more like Samurai Warriors, 4 but with Star Wars characters? You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where I'm getting at.
Oh, well then, if we're going that front, I'd say I'd personally want it to look, again, something more colorful, more dynamic, but still, that has a good amount of detail that could be thrown in. So let's go Dynasty Warriors 8.
Okay, all right, I can see it.
And if I can throw in a little something, I
Yeah.
want the people from Blizzard to do the cinematics.
Oh my god, asking way too much.
Hey,
The budget.
it's a dream game, man.
Did I tell you the guy
Them or
that makes
them
the
or the studio
cinematics
from Blur.
is
Sorry, go
Thor's
ahead.
dad? Did I tell you that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we had
really
that
interesting.
conversation. I remember that one.
Okay, cool. No, that's awesome. That's a crazy one. Okay, yeah. Anything else you want to add to that? Star Wars Warriors, as Call Blade said. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that before you move to X Men?
Nothing I want to add to that.
Okay. All right, let's go to X Men. So an X Men Muso, Capcom's making it. So it's gonna look like Sengoku Basara 4.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the latest one? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Last Party. Is that what it's called? Okay. Um. So are we gonna start with like 7 of them and then move on to like
Yeah.
weirdo characters?
Yeah. basically, what we'll be starting with is the first class. So,
Okay.
Cyclops, Jean, Iceman, Beast. Probably. Let's see, Cyclops, Jean, Iceman, Beast, Wolverine, because Wolverine's the favorite.
Oh, he's
Let,
DLC for sure. People will buy
let's
that.
see. Let's see another good agility type character. We probably have Nightcrawler on the base roster too.
Okay. And then, do you want it to be just like Basara, or do you want it to be like Warriors or Omega Force style, or
Mm, uh, I think more like Basara would work, largely because with a lot of the stuff, that happens in just in the X-Men stories in general, it's not like massive battlefields. It could be a little bit more, focused, a little bit more, I guess, street level.
yeah? Okay.
But what also would be interesting is, again, much like with Star Wars, there's that expansive history that you've got with X-Men. So all the different locales like Krakoa, Asteroid M,
Mhm.
Genosha, the Savage Lands. Different, the different stories, and some of the different antagonists that could be set up. I mean, again, Bastion is still a pretty big player in X-Men. So, I mean, it could literally be, something like what happened in X-Men '97.
I haven't seen it. I don't have Disney Plus.
Well, just come upstairs, man. We'll watch it sometime.
Just pound
There
through
you
it.
go.
So Nick, you had yours, right? You had to buy. You had the Horizon one. Okay.
I did.
So mine's relatively easy. A new Bloody Roar game. Okay. So designed by Arc System Works.
Go
All right.
on.
Right. See, I already have it primed up, baby. I'm ready to go.
I'm already ready for that soundtrack.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I want a jamming soundtrack for sure, and I want like each was it bestial? What did they call the characters back then? I can't remember. Each character to have like a music theme. Like one would be jazz, one would be rock, right?
Hmm.
And and that would correlate with their animal slash character design. It would be kind of like Strive, like you can really see their theme on their design, right?
Yeah.
So that's what hence Arc System Works. They have good experience in that. The combat system, I do want it 2.5D. I don't want it full 3D, right? um if it was me. And then, but the difference would be they would be able to transform during combat, right? Just like the old games. 2.5D meaning like it's like Fighter Z, right? Stuff like that. I don't necessarily want it to be tag, but the art direction, Arc System Works, very colorful. Especially like once they transform, like the character that really kind of got me thinking about this was who's the wolf? Giovanna
Hmm.
had the wolf, and she's part of also like that's part of her character. Like kind of made me think of that more. Like I want to see some bloody war characters in that art style. Um, not 3v3, 1v1. And then kind of like honestly, if you clone copy Guilty Gear Strive into Bloody Roar, but change the combat system a little bit, kind of like what they did with DNF Duel, right? DNF Duel was like an Arc System Works game that was like similar to Strive, but the combat mechanics was more like Marvel, right?
Right.
So I feel like that right there would be a good template for a lot of fighting games to be transitioned over to to art. Pretty much Arc System Works getting a lot of work, getting a lot of jobs. So because you can take
Yeah.
any kind of fighting game franchise, I would say okay, the next Marvel versus Capcom game can be made by Arc System Works. Look how colorful that would be, right? Everybody would be like in Jim Lee style artwork. That'd be crazy, you know?
Yeah, that would.
Yeah. So stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of like my thing. Like as far as like my ask, my what if, or my rhetorical. If I could make it happen, that would be my choice. Aside from, I agree with you. I want a Chrono Trigger remake, and it's not that hard. I mean, Sandland came out. All the Dragon Quest games came out too. It's easily done artistically, right? What I would change on a Chrono Trigger, They would honestly, realistically, they would probably make it more live action, kind of like remake is, because that's just look at what they did to 16,
Mhm.
right? Because I want the game to sell too, right? Because like it's not gonna, but having that option for turn based, like the fake turn based, would be there as well, because that's kind of part of the Chrono Trigger's charm. Um, but yeah, I don't know how that would work since Toriyama-san is passed, but like I'm sure that's not my thing. So that's another topic to look into. Um, got to get in there before Nobu retires, like officially. We talked about that last time.
Mm-mm.
So yeah. But another big one that I would ask, Breath of Fire. Jeez, what's happening with that franchise? The last time I heard it was a mobile game. What the heck? You know?
Yeah, like we definitely need something with Breath of Fire again.
Yeah.
That's
So
probably so a a reflection of where the gaming industry is as a whole and where the money is.
yeah,
Mobile games and the mobile market is just massive, and it's easy to package something like that. For me too. Like, I remember when Fire Emblem came out. Was it Heroes? Came out on like the 3DS,
yeah,
if I
Heroes.
remember right, like that blew up, and so it was already on a handheld console at that point, and it sold like crazy. And with phones the way they were, I could see it being made for that. Yeah, would it be nice to have a full-fledged console release, big epic scales, right? Absolutely. But I can't begrudge them for something like that. It was already on handhelds at that point. Now, if
True.
it's monetized the heck,
Yeah.
absolutely gonna hate it. But
Do Do you guys know if it's like much less expensive to develop for a mobile? I'm sure it is.
typically, yes, but
Yeah.
it's more so and this is just with my basic understanding, it's more so the overhead is a lot lower on a mobile
Oh,
game.
I bet less red tape. Also.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, going back to RPG Maker MV, that was another big paradigm shift that MV made compared to VX Ace in the previous entries. For MV, you could develop and deploy on mobile.
Yeah. Let me go to Jago's here. Jago said, "Still, I think Chrono Trigger might still work as turn-based since Persona and others keeping to that." Now,
And
I'll
I
Ooh,
love
actually,
I'll
that gives me an
Persona.
idea. Okay,
go ahead. Ace.
if we keep Chrono Trigger turn based, then there are two games that I can think of that are either out or coming out right now, like this year, if not next year. That would be perfect to use as the skeleton to build off of that. One being Metaphor Refantasio. The second being Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
So you're saying you want Chrono Trigger to be made by Atlas?
You know,
Yeah, that's not a bad
you
idea.
know.
That's not a bad idea,
Oh,
Matt.
Why didn't you think of that?
why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
That's that's a good rhetorical, right? Yeah, and here's the thing. I've looked into Clair Obscura, and that's the thing too. It's like turn-based games is not dead, right? What
Oh,
I'm trying to get
not
at
by a
is
long shot.
if you are the person fronting this and you're investing your money into this, right? Because that's the other part of that too, right? Because clearly, if I had unlimited money, we would do
Right.
whatever the hell we want.
Money not
Um,
being an object.
yeah, because that we'd have the perfect game regardless how much it's sold, but it's for us.
It'd be
But
perfect for us,
yeah,
right?
for us, exactly. That's the problem with being it perfect for us, that it's not perfect for everybody else, right?
It is a
So
business.
yeah, it is a business. So my thing with turn-based Jagos is that the job of the publisher typically lets the developer know, like, hey, we need to kind of like get the biggest audience we can, right? And turn-based isn't exactly thrilling for a lot of people, right? They think it's boring, whatever, right? Just depends on the crowd you want to get. But the ones that are passionate about it will be passionate about it with the expectation that it's been done before and now it's being done better, right? Because I have no issue with turn-based, but the amount of people like Final Fantasy Remake's a big one in Final Fantasy 16 is that they want to go away from that because they want to reach other people that haven't experienced Final Fantasy yet and then try it out, right?
Right.
They want to get that DMC crowd. They want to get that God of War crowd also, right? Because they want to maximize their investment. So I agree with you on that, man. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, the funny thing about Claire Obscure is that I actually signed up as one of their like content creators. So hopefully I get approved. I should get a code to try it out. That'd be kind of fun. Looking forward to that. But if not, I do want to check it out. It definitely looks goated. I know nothing about it, but that's that I think that's why it's so cool that I know nothing, but yet I want to play it. You know, like the impression is good. Some games you watching like, ugh, that looks rough. You know, like for example, I would tell you Helldivers 2 on a trailer looks terrible. But then you play, you're like, this game is fun, right? But the trailer, I was like, it's just another one of those games. Like, because you don't know what it does, but you play it and you realize the systems, and you're like, this is actually quite fun. That's one of the times I would say that's where I was proven wrong by the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be really interesting. I mean, that's what I love about what ifs too. Like you can throw out even the couple examples I know that you really hammered home on was getting these games in front of different development studios, which is always interesting. It doesn't always mean it's going to work out, but kind of leveraging their unique talents or what they're known for, their skill sets. You're looking at, you could throw like, hey, I want Legend of Zelda, but done by From Software. You
Mm.
know,
Oh my god, that'd be crazy.
right? So just imagine that kind of like challenging combat with some survival, but cryptic storytelling in the lore of Zelda, or in the world that's like that a little bit, the way that gets focused in on. Or you could do something like flip that where you do something like what Animal Crossing, but done by like Naughty Dog. So trying to put in an actual like story driven, like character story driven. One of the things about Animal Crossing is always it's kind of like cast of characters, right? But what if you give them like deep character driven stories and emotional depth,
Mm.
like really tying in those relationships like Naughty Dog does?
Oh my
That
god.
would be super cool.
Like, imagine Animal Crossing, but written by and designed by Miyazaki from Elden Ring. You'd just be like, "What is this? What is this town?"
Oh
No,
my
no, no.
god, that'd be horrible.
Or you can just do Animal Crossing done by Kojima Productions.
Oh man, we
Like Animal Crossing, but done in God,
Like
what Death
Death
Stranding's
Stranding
universe.
style.
man, I feel like if we ever got a survival game from Kojima, it would just be so dry. You know, like it would be innovative for sure. He would find a way, but like I would be like, dude, I just want to build this wall. Stop talking to me. You know, like I don't need a backstory on how to build this wall. Right? I didn't. I think it'd still be cool. I think no, he did like no, he didn't do that. It was Metal Gear Survive. Oh my god, they
Yep.
already did one. But he wasn't part of that. That was like a cash grab from Konami for sure. We're running a little bit on time here, but I'll skip. What's your price? But Nick, you weren't here last time. But what's your price is a new segment in our podcast where we review a game we've played before and pretty much talk about how much are you willing to pay for it. Right. So,
One of our favorite games working behind the counter.
yep,
When
that's
someone would come up and we're just like, yeah, it's not worth that. I'd buy it when it's on sale.
correct. And I feel like people have reviewed games through history, but never really mentioned how much they would pay for it versus like, just buy it now or whatever, right? So I think that's a good way to help our community out a little bit more, stretch out their dollar. That's kind of what I'm here to help out, and also give them a sense of transparency of what goes on behind the counter and stuff like that. So we'll skip that for tonight since we're running low on time, and I want to move over to the what do you call this? What did I have last here?
One of my friends just DM'd me and they said um, it was Celeste by Platinum Games.
Oh my god.
Platinum Games.
We played a lot of Platinum games before. That one was really
Celeste
fun
though?
to be thinking about. Yeah, Celeste. Like they're
Oh,
constant.
the mountain climbing game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like a challenging kind of platformer kind of thing,
Yeah.
but done with that kind of like that blend of platforming action that Platinum
Edgy.
is known
Yeah.
for. Yeah, super edgy.
Oh man, I'm just trying to think of like what if Platinum designed Jump King? Jesus.
Oh. Or you do something like Spider-Man done by Insomniac, just
Yeah, something like that.
anyway, sorry,
Um,
continue.
no, all good. Actually, that was the one I wanted to cover. Is I have a last. I do have a what's your price. Sorry, I was talking about a review, but this is our our price for tonight. We're doing. I'm gonna put Dredge in there.
The recommendation.
My recommendation, yeah. So I'll kind of combine the two, right? I actually bought Dredge like a few months ago. I was actually looking for it on the PS5, but I wasn't able to acquire it for the deluxe edition. So there is actually a collector's edition coming out next month, a little bit more than $29.99, but using that QR code, you can actually buy Dredge on the Switch for $29.99 on Amazon. That link, that QR code directly supports the stream. So if you buy it from them using that link, it'll go towards contributing to the stream. So my price for it was $29.99. I do try to wait for it was on sale. I try not to buy it full price if I don't have to. But if you guys don't know what Dredge is, it is it's a fishing game. Partly fishing, part Cthulhu, Eldritch Horror game. So it's a game
God.
draped in mystery, where you meet all these people around this like coastal area, and you kind of unravel the story as you fish more fish. You will start dredging for things that you're like, oh, what's this like brooch here? And then some guy in the village will say, oh, I've seen that brooch before. So you know nothing about what's happening except you're a fisherman. But then as you kind of do more missions and quests for the locals, you start kind of figuring out what happens and
Interesting.
why this place is kind of crazy, right? So for $29.99, I think that's a great deal, especially on the Switch. This is one of those types of games that is like, get it on the Switch versus like your home console. Super cool. But made by Team 17. I know historically they made the Worms games, and they made some other games as well in the
I
past.
loved the Worms games growing up.
Squall Shade said Dredge also did a team up with Dave the Diver, and that's true. That's actually the other game I recommended 2 shows ago. Or that. What's my price? I would say if you get it for $19, that's a steal. That's a lot of game in here for that. But you kind of have to like an indie game like this. I think it's a little bit overpriced for $40, to be honest with you. Even though that I loved it, I think it's a little bit overpriced for 40 $39.99. But get it on sale right now for $29.99 on the Switch. Is my recommendation. There was some slight performance issues on Switch on mobile, but if you played on dock, there was nothing. There was no issue there as well. So if you like this kind of game, it's like half puzzle, half mystery, a little bit of fishing. It's totally cool. Lots of hours here. So I think it took me about, I don't know, like you can probably go through the game 30 hours, maybe even 40 if you take your time,
Hmm.
right? And that's what I did the math last time, man. So what did I do here? I did 30. So 30 hours divided by 30.
So
That's a
dollar an
times
hour.
dollar an hour. There you go. So yeah, dollar an hour for what I've played for, and I played it, for that long. I think it's worth it. There is some replay value in it, but I think was as soon as you beat it, like you're gonna either hate the game or want to play it more. And it's a good game to kind of like just turn off your brain, play it, and good to go. But aside from that, that is my recommendation for tonight. So there's no coincidence that it's a Switch game. I've been like I said, I recommend Dave the Diver. About Dredge in exactly the same day. My girlfriend thought I was on in a fishing phase. Like she asked me if I wanted to go fishing.
Mm.
I was like, no, it's not. It's not it at all. Like it's actually her fault that I played Dredge because she was playing Dredge and I was quite intrigued what was happening. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna play it since you don't want to play it anymore, right? So, like I said, use that QR code, support the stream. Otherwise, we appreciate you. But yeah, that's pretty much for our show tonight. Any closing statements, guys?
Yeah, I do have one, and this is actually going to kind of dovetail into what I'd like to include for next week's session
Yeah, go for it.
because I did wind up making a purchase today, and I will be playing that game. I will be streaming it pretty much like I'll be streaming it from the start, starting fresh with this game tomorrow.
Hmm.
So, you know, Airship Syndicate just did their 1.0 release for Wayfinder, the game that they were initially working on with Digital Extremes.
Okay.
But, at first it was going to be, a live service, it was going to be a live service, hero style, looter shooter like Warframe. So pretty much picture Warframe, but in the same kind of art style as like Battle Chasers and Darksiders.
Oh, that sounds pretty
Fun.
cool.
But there were a few things that happened with the development, and Airship Syndicate basically had to split off from Digital Extremes. They basically damn near rebuilt the game, and now it's more of a just a straight up action RPG, just a straight up action RPG. One price for admission, and you get the content, and you can play through the story, unlock everything. Just it's a standard game from there on out. So I went on and I actually purchased Wayfinders. Right now it's on, like, it just released 1.0, so it's like in full release right now. $24.99 on the PlayStation Store. I picked that up and I figured, you know what, we can start on that tomorrow. So tomorrow afternoon, once I get everything set up for normal stream time, 5 p.m. Pacific, y'all can find me on my channel if you want to check out Wayfinder. And that will very likely be the game that I will be reviewing for What's My Price next week. Or at the very least, I will be talking about it, whether it's recommended or whether it's something that I would say folks should avoid. And, if this is something where I'd want to get my money back.
Yeah. No, that sounds cool. I actually bought a Steam game recently that was a successor to Heroes of Might and Magic, and a classic. So I wanted to try it out. That was their selling point. So I want to try
All
that
right.
out too. Probably do that for next week as well. Nick, you got anything for next week or whatever you got kind of brewing up there?
I don't have anything brewing besides in 2 days, Like a Dragon, Yakuza comes to Amazon Prime. The
Let's
series
go. Let's
is out.
go.
So I don't know if my boy Andre is still in the crowd, but that's what I am doing
Hit
2
it.
days from now.
If you want to talk about it in the next stream, man, let me know. We'll save
No,
some
no,
time
no.
for it.
I'm already getting typecasted in my group, so I don't do that online as well.
Our local
Like,
weeb,
yeah, right.
Nicholas.
Well, come on, I'm already
language like it.
I'm already
No.
typecast as the man on the street. So
Yeah, you got
there you go.
typecasted hard.
Musa
Beyond that, no,
Warrior.
I don't have anything just yet, but I'm looking forward to being part of the new stuff. I'm sorry I missed the last 2 weeks, and I'm sorry for my internet connectivity issues this first little bit, but it's good to be back. It's good
Yeah,
to be
it's
back in the community and talking to the people in chat as well. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
yeah. I don't know what happened, but it seems good now. Yeah.
I reset the router. I like
Okay.
straight up just
It just
pulled the
hated
plug.
8 o'clock for some
Yeah,
reason.
Did you turn it off and turn it back on?
just
All right, chat. All right, well, that's a wrap for this week's episode of GQAzndood Gaming Academy with our faculty here and more. Thanks for joining us on another deep dive into the world of gaming. We hope you enjoyed the discussion on Black Myth Wukong, the Nintendo Switch online playtest program, and of course, the creative journey in the new, what we call subject, the Rhetorical. Hope you liked my recommendation for tonight. And like I said, you can use that QR code to support the stream directly. And if you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, drop a review. It helps us keeps us bringing you the latest and greatest in gaming. Before we go on, I'll leave you with this. In the words of the legendary game designer Shigeru Miyamoto, a delayed game is eventually good, but a rush game is forever bad. Just like in gaming, sometimes take the time to refine your craft. It makes all the big difference. So whether you're designing your dream game or leveling up in life, patience and persistence will always lead you to something great. Until next time, chat, keep gaming and stay inspired. Have a good one.